The following podcast was brought to you by the members of the Casino Skunk Secret Society. For just $1 a month, you can unlock every audio and video episode available instantly. And don't worry about any commitments. You can quit at any time. So for just $1, you can download every single episode and then bounce out. Just head to patreon.com/casinoskunk. Welcome to the Casino Skunk Secret Society. I am Ralph. This is episode 68, and we are covering Mandalorian Chapter 8, Redemtion, and I'm joined by Axel Foley from dvrpodcast.com. Axel, how's it going?
It's going great, man. I am very excited to be here with you. I'm in a Star Wars frame of mind. I went and saw the Rise of the Skywalker today with my kid. And I'm ready to talk about Mando, baby.
Yeah, the season finale of The Mandalorian. I was listening to Owen and Baru's Barbecue on the Jane Jack Network. The latest episode, was it the latest episode? No, it was the previous episode, Chapter 7 that you were on. And thanks for mentioning my name on the show, in this show.
Of course.
But yeah, it sounded like you loved Mandalorian from beginning to end.
I most certainly have. This is kind of what I always wanted, and it kind of fell in line very quickly with what I expected. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of times we always bring our expectations into what we're watching, especially with something like Star Wars, you know?
Right.
And so for me, I didn't have any hurdles to get. I just wanted kind of like Mandalorian in the Star Wars universe. And I was actually a little kind of worried that it was going to be overly plotted out like I have found the newest films to be.
Right.
And so I was super excited when it wasn't. And I kind of, I'm a fan of Favreau. I think that the dude is a really solid director.
Right.
And I think that he doesn't often, since he has experience in the Marvel universe and all that, and coming from the swingers days and coming up in the industry, I think he knows, he makes good decisions. And I was just really happy with it.
Right. Speaking of which, now folks that listen to this show know that I had a problem with episode 5 and 6. That was the Tatooine episode and the Prisoner episode.
Yeah.
I had real, they felt like filler episodes, and I felt like they could be placed in any order in the show, and it was kind of a bad pairing back to back for me as far as the story goes. And there's something that I realized after watching the latest episode, which is those two episodes are the only two that Jon Favreau didn't write.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yes, I found it very interesting because I love last week's episode. I love this finale. They were both so good. And I feel like maybe what has happened is maybe Jon Favreau wrote a movie called The Mandalorian. And they went and said, well, how about we do it as a series? And they chopped it up and needed a couple of episodes to fill out a series.
I would not be, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm not a person who thinks things need to be, this is now people everywhere, everything needs to be planned out, or
right.
Lost wasn't planned. Well, creativity doesn't work that way, and it doesn't work best that way, in my opinion. So if that's what happened, those episodes were definitely more standalone-ish,
right.
Or really they were standalone episodes, they picked little parts of them were kind of integrated into these last couple episodes, but I just enjoyed them for what they were. And I was listening along while you were doing the pod and while we were all watching.
While I was going through my spiral.
Yeah, but I appreciate your criticism because it comes from a place of love and of you wanting, and you take into account your own expectations. I think you're an adult about it. I mean, I've been kind of shocked today seeing Rise of the Skywalker and then finally looking at spoilers online. You just see how some people just get so angry either way and lose perspective on something. And that's rather unfortunate. But I thought you always had a good perspective, and I couldn't disagree with you because there wasn't a lot of plot there. It was meandering.
Right.
There were certain times where I was hoping, like, "Oh, are we going to get?" And then nothing happened. But since I kind of dug just watching it with my kid, and I also dug just the vibe, the samurai western kind of drifter vibe here. I mean, even like I still don't understand how they track him. Does anybody understand that? I don't get it. What's the fob? How does it work?
Right.
But I just kind of said, okay, I'm going to go along with it.
Right. And that's one of those things where I feel like I don't want too much explanations in my Star Wars, because then you start coming up with logic problems.
Yeah.
And with Rise of Skywalker, they didn't really explain why the Emperor came back, and I didn't care. I was happy. I was like, you know what? I'm glad he's back. Whatever excuse they gave us on why he was back, I'd be picking apart with a fine-tooth comb. So yeah, I don't mind that they don't over-explain things. The fobs kinda, I get it. They're a tracking thing. Is it DNA related? Like if you get when you go into you get booked for jail, you take your fingerprint. Well, what's the Star Wars version of that? Do they take some sort of blood sample? Yeah, they mentioned
that code. Remember, it was last episode. I think there were a couple people who mentioned it. They said something like your data sequence or something, like, is it? And I thought, oh, okay,
it's
is
like
that
DNA.
what? Yeah, exactly. Like I thought maybe we're going to learn. We didn't really learn anything about it this episode, but I don't know.
But I feel like that's enough, though. I feel like that's enough for you to be like, okay, I can move on from that.
Yes.
But yeah, like I mentioned, like episode 5 and 6, definitely not thrilled about, but the last 2 episodes, way back on board, way more enthusiastic about it. Had no problems doing my rewatch for the podcast episode. Those 2 episodes, the 5 and 6, I did not feel like rewatching for the podcast. So these last 2 are really great. And also it helps that this one was directed by one of my favorite dudes, Taika Waititi, who is a talented and just fun guy. And who better to do a Star Wars show than him? I mean, he should be getting a movie for sure.
I hope so.
But they should only give it to him if he has like full control. Because like Thor Ragnarok completely took probably the least interesting sort of Marvel character, like at the time. I don't think that Thor and Thor Dark World were among anybody's favorite of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. No. But he comes along and does Thor Ragnarok, and it like completely does a 180, and I would put that in my top 5, no problem.
Yeah, for me, that is, I mean, really the only auteur-driven Marvel movie that they've done. Mm-hmm. I think they kind of let him go with it. It was fun. That's my favorite one. Those movies are a lot of fun.
Right.
I appreciated that one in a different way, where I just saw so much creativity coming out. Right. That it just like, I mean, even the costumes, everything, just the sets, it was gorgeous. And he did a great job. I actually thought that he was pretty restrained in this episode. Right. And I appreciated that, because it wasn't like he came in and said, okay, here, let's turn the lights on, It still felt like everything else, but it had little touches.
I feel like the opening scene was sort of him
Yeah.
getting his Star Wars stamp, you know, like
Yes.
this is what it would be like if I did Star Wars, and then he went into the episode. But those two biker scouts, that scene, I mean, I could have watched a whole episode of that. I found them incredibly entertaining. I don't think they got killed, so I could see a return to them. I know one of them got beat into one of the speeder bikes, and the other got his wrist broken. But I feel like we could see their return, which would be great.
That would be. You know, that was Jason Sudeikis and Adam Paley.
Yeah.
And both of those, I got Sudeikis, I got right away, but Paley I didn't get until after. And I've seen him on what was he on, the Mindy Project, and there was that Friends-like show that was on ABC where the daughter from 24, Kiefer Sutherland's daughter, it was pretty good actually. It was a fun little, and Damon Wayans Jr. was on it too. But that was a fun show. But that was great. That was you're absolutely right that was like his little short film,
right,
to get the creativity out, because that was a little bit different, and then it followed suit.
Yeah, I feel like the bulk of the actual episode itself, I think a lot of the comedy or fun came from the action, and pretty much the rest of it was taken fairly seriously. Like there really wasn't a lot of jokes. Even his character that he plays, IG-11, wasn't as funny as he was in the first episode.
Not at all. That's a great point, Ralph. Not at all. He was, because you could see the way the programming had changed, and he had turned on that naturing and protecting.
Yeah.
And I like that. And actually, for a second, because it wasn't jokey, I was like, is that still him playing it, or did they get? But I was like, no, that is still him playing.
It's still him.
The voice, but it was very reserved.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. I thought this was a great episode, and it really tied everything together.
Right.
And starting it, except of course where he keeps on smacking Baby Yoda, which was not nice. Nobody liked that part.
Yeah. Well, you need to establish your bad guys being bad guys, I suppose. Did you see Jojo Rabbit?
No. What? Oh no, the film that he recently did. No, I have not seen it.
Yeah, great movie. A lot of humor, but there's a lot of drama towards the latter half of the movie. It's pretty great. It's really.
I was. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you get a chance, you should definitely check it out.
I would. I'd like to.
Yeah. So the IG-11 gets on the speeder bike. This made me very happy. There was a cartoon of the Clone Wars before the CG series. There was a series of shorts that Genndy Tartakovsky did. He did, I believe, he did Powerpuff Girls. I could be wrong. Or Samurai Jack. I think he did.
It was Samurai Jack, and he recently did Primal.
That's right.
That was a great little series.
Because Samurai Jack was great because it lended itself to sort of like almost along the lines of Mandalorian, but his style lent itself to Star Wars. And in that series, he had IG droids. He had IG Lancers, which were also riding speeder bikes, which I always thought was a really cool visual. And here in this episode, he doesn't have the actual like jousting lance, but still the droid riding the speeder bike, so great. So many fun stuff. Like there's so much fun stuff happening in this. When he takes out the speeder bike guys sitting at the entrance, and then you see the two stormtroopers haggling with the Jawa.
Yeah.
And they get taken out as he goes by. Like, just, I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I feel like Jon Favreau and company just had the biggest pile of Kenner Star Wars toys and just went around and played with them and then directed that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
When IG-11 comes screaming in on the speeder bike, he jumps off. The speeder bike tumbles, takes out a couple stormtroopers. He starts firing at everybody in sight and hitting everybody. Like, it just felt like something I would do on the floor of my living room.
It totally did. And it was cool how it's a droid on the speeder bike, and it started to make you feel like he could become the speeder bike. And then later you see that R2 unit that stands up and has the big arms and legs. And I don't know, I was just kind of thinking about that, kind of like communicating how like the connection even between like the Mandalorian and his armor and technology and people. Maybe I'm getting too deep about it, but I just thought it was kind of interesting to me that as IG-11 was riding the speeder bike, I almost in my mind created like a speeder bike that has a droid built into it.
Like a single machine.
Yeah, and it was kind of, and he acted like that, like it was because those things traditionally, it's like the human always has control of it until they don't, and then they go flying off of it. Mm-hmm. But I never thought that he was going to go. And you're right, the way his body spun and it just went, and then it was like ding, 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 and it was shot so well, just like still frame,
Yeah.
Boom. He did the action, boom, boom. And the way the Jawa just stood there was like the little noise after the shot. Because Jawas, they don't care, man. They're like moving on.
They're probably gonna resell that armor.
Exactly. An opportunity.
We get a scene with Moff Gideon, and he knows everybody that's in this bar that he has trapped in the bar. So we get a little bit of backstory on each of the characters. The first one being Cara Cynthia Dune of Alderaan. So Cara Dune is from Alderaan. So it would probably put her around, let's see, Alderaan blew up in Star Wars. And this is, let's say, 11 years after Star Wars. If it, I'm assuming that it's 6 years between Star Wars and Jedi. And this takes place 5 years after Jedi. So just roughly, I'm going to say about 11 years. So she was probably in her early 20s, mid-20s when Alderaan blew up, which makes her hate the Imperial even more, I'm assuming. Because she definitely has...
Yeah, I like that touch. Yeah, it was cool the way he shouts at each of them out. And for me, that was an important thing plot-wise, because I had to understand why he was even talking to them.
Right.
He had already blown up all of his own guys, and I was glad that they addressed it, the two stormtroopers in the beginning, where they said, hey, he already killed his own guys.
Right.
Because that was kind of a thing that I was wondering when I was on Owen and Baruz. We were talking, like, Matt had the idea of, like, does this, like, signify different factions? Or is it just that he's crazy? And I guess it's just that he's crazy. But it's like, why? It's almost as if he's there. They set up something interesting because there's an emotional attachment that they have because of that pain. But it seems as if there's something even deeper for him about particularly the two characters, not grief as much.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I sort of took it as he didn't want to fire the E-Web blaster in there because he has a chance to still get the baby alive.
But didn't he know that they had the baby, or was there a time displaced? See, that's what I didn't get. If there was it's like displaced time. Like the scene that we saw happened kind of while he was talking, and he gets the information that the baby has been taken, but then it was like IG-11 got there so quickly on the speed. I was I didn't understand why he said to them, I'll give you till sundown. and I've been listening and reading to a couple other podcasts in preparation. Mm-hmm. Some people like yourself are saying, well, okay, he didn't really know at that point, so he was playing it safe. But I still thought that maybe there was another reason why he was keeping them alive that was important to him outside of the asset or Baby Yoda.
Well, here's the thing is, by the time we get to this point in the show, it sounds like the Imperials have pretty much taken out all of the Mandalorians on Navarro, with the exception of the Armorer and then the Mandalorian himself.
That's right.
Yeah. So we find out at the end of the episode that he's in possession of the Darksaber. Now, the Darksaber is huge in Mandalorian lore. And I'm really just starting to catch up on Clone Wars since Disney Plus has come out. I kind of stopped after 3 seasons. I'm back up again, and I'm in the middle of season 4. And I know the Darksaber is in this show. I don't know if I've seen it yet, or if it's something I saw way back when. But it's definitely in the show Rebels, which I watched all of. And the Darksaber is huge in Mandalorian culture. And essentially whoever wields the Darksaber is essentially the head of Mandalore. Like, if you're able to get your hands on this, you're essentially the king of the hill. So he must have been talking to them and not fired into the bar because of something that the Mandalorian has or he wants.
Yeah, or that there's a connection there that we don't yet know about. Maybe that's his grandfather or something.
Maybe it could be. It could be something where Moff Gideon knows this guy from the past, and he knows about this, what he called the trail. Was it the Trail of the Night of 1,000 Tears? That maybe that the Mandalorian has some sort of information that he could use. Maybe it has to do with the necklace. Maybe there's something he possesses. He knows that, since he knows his past enough, that there's something that he has Mandalorian wise that he could use. So it's interesting. Well,
isn't that saber, what's it called? The Darksaber?
Right.
Wasn't that, so I was listening to another Mandalorian podcast by my friends Bubba and Catfish on the Double P podcast network, and they kind of read through the history of it.
Okay.
And I had known a bit because I've watched some of the cartoons, not all of them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think I did watch them all, and then I rewatched some with my son, so sometimes I'm not even ever sure. But so that was originally owned by the only Mandalorian Jedi, right? Isn't that where that comes from? And then it was like stolen by this person and that person, and then it shows up again in Rebels, and then Sabine gives it to like her sister to hold or something, and then that's before the massacre of the Mandalorians. Am I correct about that?
I don't fully know. I know about as much as you do, and I think you're correct.
Okay. I think that's what I gleaned from it.
But yeah, Sabine did have it for a while in Rebels, and she did give it to her sister.
Okay.
So, and that happened just before the original Star Wars. So that, again, would be like 11 years before this episode.
So I like that. That is enough kind of mythology and stuff for me to like and to be kind of fascinated by this character. Uh-huh. And of course it's Giancarlo Esposito, so he's always fantastic. But it make me question, like, does he have force powers, or is it Mandalorian? Like, where is a Jedi connection, a Mandalorian connection? Maybe he's trying to right that original wrong, or he has some kind of perverted sense of justice. Maybe he wants to and our Mandalorian has something to do with it, I think that was enough to get me interested.
Right. I'm really excited about season 2. I wasn't super thrilled on seeing the dark saber. We have still not made it through any sort of Star Wars without a lightsaber being involved. We almost had that with Solo. We were so close in Solo, and this in the last 30 seconds of the Mandalorian.
What are you, anti-Jedi?
No. It's one of those things where I feel like what's fun about the Mandalorian show is that it takes place on the outskirts of our main Star Wars story, and there's never really any crossover. That's one of the reasons why I like Solo so much, even though it is Han Solo and Chewbacca. We don't really have to deal with Imperials and the Rebellion. Yeah. There's a little bit of stuff with the Rebellion towards the end, but it's not really about that. So I kind of like that Star Wars that's kind of on the outskirts.
I dig it. I know what you're saying.
And then, this one, I feel like, we're so close. Like, lightsabers now bring in Jedi and all this other stuff. I mean, even though we do have Baby Yoda, which I guess has a name. I heard it. I watched an interview with Bob Iger on StarWars.com, and he says he knows its name. So
its name is Cash Money.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Tell me about it.
The little green, that Prince green, the goose that laid the golden. I still can't believe they don't have that out as a damn stuffed animal, because I would have bought like 3 of them for my kid for Christmas, but I guess they're coming. But yeah, I heard that too, that he said that it has a name, and I guess we'll find out.
I guess so.
We found out Mando's name, right?
Yeah, that was cool, I guess. I mean, it's just a Mandalorian-esque name.
Yeah, that's a name. Yeah.
So this whole season, they've talked about him not taking off his helmet. And I didn't know if we would see his face or not, but the scene leading right up to it kind of made me groan a little bit. Where the Mando says, "No living thing has seen me without my helmet." And I'm like, because he said living thing, it's so obviously that it sets up the line, "I'm not a living thing."
Yeah, it kind of worked for me. I agree with you that it was I knew too that he was going to say it. Yeah. But I think that Taiki's line reading kind of got me, and that's what it was. I was reminded of the way he was serious. Like, he didn't say like, "Well, I am not." I think, he just said, "I am not a," and I kind of bought it. And I was like, okay, I kind of bought it. And then surprisingly, he takes off his helmet, and it's Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones. I had no idea. I was shocked. It was kind of weird because he took off the helmet, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to be surprised? I knew the actor. Yeah. I guess took off the helmet, but it didn't have the resonance, I guess, to me, because if say he had taken off the helmet when he had met that woman in the village,
right,
there would have been an emotional resonance or character resonance. But in this sense, there was a resonance because, he was trusting a droid, right? He had learned to trust. Right. And that was kind of his journey through this season. I appreciated that. Yeah. But there was nothing, it didn't affect his creed. It didn't affect how he views himself. So it was I think I even leaned to my son and I said, "Hey, it's the guy from Game of Thrones." And he was like, "What?" I just had to make a dumb joke.
For me, it was kind of like it was baby steps for him.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it took a lot for him, to trust a droid, and then to take off his helmet. I was surprised that there was nothing to it. Like, he didn't have like an eye patch or some sort of like alien makeup or something. It was just him. I mean, he had scars on his face from the battle, but I mean, I'm like, I know what he looked like. I was waiting for it to be something a little bit more, but I don't really. It really didn't bother me. It was just, I thought it was kind of a funny scene that I feel like that scene was in there just because they got notes. It's from somebody saying we have to see his face.
Yeah, so. There was too much bad press about it not actually being him in any of the episodes, which I didn't care about at all.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't. There was something else that I found out, which really shocked me, is that wasn't Nick Nolte either. He didn't, shrink down to 3 feet tall. It doesn't. Nobody is anybody. He still, to me, it didn't matter. But some people I know were kind of upset, like, oh, it wasn't him. Yeah, I guess I kind of feel that. But I also think it made sense in the story. They did build up to it. Mm-hmm. It showed the trust with the droid. Yeah. And at that point, I kind of was thinking, for a second, I thought, wait, maybe he's going to die.
Right.
Maybe really this character is going to die in this. They're going to like pull one on us, and a different Mandalorian is going to pick up, this. Or maybe I was thinking, oh wait, maybe Giancarlo is going to all of a sudden be a good guy or something, like come in and he's the new Mando or something. So it got me in that sense, where I thought, okay, now. Once he took the helmet off, I thought, oh, there's no way he's dying. They're going to kind of show us that, Yeah. Like it for a second, it got me. And then I was like, oh no, like as he was taking it off, then it hit me. Oh, this is to show the emotion here.
Right. I thought for a second, I thought he was going to die as well. And then that Cara Dune would take over.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe take his armor. And
that would have been
baby
cool.
in his place. Because the only thing the only thing we've seen from season 2 is Jon Favreau posted a picture on Instagram saying that he that they'd started production and he just had the helmet sitting on a rock. So I'm like, oh, it could be anybody.
Did he have? I saw a picture of him and he was holding up one of those guards from Return of the Jedi, like a model of that.
Yeah, he posted like a. It was either a model or it was a piece of like production art for a Gamorrean guard, but it was more like it looked a little more slender.
Maybe we're going to see Jabba or something,
Jabba would be dead by this point, but there are other Hutts out there.
Well, nobody really dies though.
Yeah. No
Star
kidding.
Wars.
So I have a question, because this is something that it wasn't really clear to me, and maybe you can help me out a bit. The Mandalorian gets his signet. The armor forges it and puts it on his shoulder plate. And is it a mudhorn? Is that what it is? Because she says it's two fight as one. But it kind of looks like it could be a profile of a mudhorn, because usually it's like the monster that you defeat to get your signet on your arm.
That's interesting. I didn't make that connection, and it could be because that was the thing that they fought and killed together.
Correct.
Right? In the beginning, in the first or second episode?
Second episode. So
I like that. When I saw it, I just thought it was more something new, like a design of a symbol or something that they kind of created, that the Bond created together. Mm-hmm. But I think that what you're saying makes sense too, because originally he said, it wasn't a clean kill.
Right.
The adversary or whatever helped me. And now, in this perspective, it would make total sense to bring it back around, because that was really what she was communicating to him, that your fates are now tied together.
Right.
And I like that. I kind of dug the way I dug her role and the way she spoke to him and the way he just listened, because I like that this show had those like elderly characters that kind of spoke to people, you know? Like Quill.
He kind of has his mindset on the code, or the creed, I guess it is. And he seems very set in his ways, and what she's telling him is kind of like, well, listen, you don't have to do it verbatim. Yeah. There's like some wiggle room in there. And so she kind of has this sort of like, she's not mad at him for collecting the child and then going back and saving it. She finds that it's somewhat admirable. And it seems like for him, he was agonizing so much over this, like going back to rescue the child. And I'm assuming he thought that way because he already received his bounty. He can't go back when he's already taken the money. So with her saying, you know, it made it seem like she was cool with it. Like maybe you don't have to stick to the code so closely. I mean, the baby is a foundling, much like he was a foundling. It sounded like she was telling him that he could train the baby, but there's also a choice to not train the baby. Because the way it made it sound like if you're a foundling, you get trained and indoctrinated into the Mandalorian code. And it seemed like she was kind of like, you can, but you don't have to.
And it would be more natural to bring it back to where it's from. This is what I liked about this show, is that for me, the thing that I was attracted to about Star Wars was, you know, I'm like a real hard sci-fi guy. I grew up reading like Arthur C. Clarke. I love like 2001 is my favorite film. I love The Expanse. I just watched Ad Astra. I love it when they just ride on something through space and they talk about science shit. I love that kind of stuff.
Right.
But Star Wars is really more, it has a spirit to it, a spirituality to it. You learn lessons, and that's what I liked about Mandalorian, and that's what I liked about this scene, is because it's speaking to that. And for me, that's like kind of the best of Star Wars, because like you say, if we go into like, Star Wars is not hard sci-fi. The more you investigate it, the more it is fantasy rather than science fiction.
Right.
And that's okay. But it's the themes. And for me, I've been studying Buddhism for since I was 18. When I was growing up, Star Wars, the G.I. Joe comic books, surprisingly, were things that kind of introduced Buddhism or Eastern thought to me. And George Lucas being, I mean, he calls himself a Methodist a Buddhist with Methodist upbringing or something. But I think what I've read is that the guy has been studying Buddhism and he meditates, he's interested in it. And that is what I found in the first 3 Star Wars, those kind of lessons that you learn. And The Mandalorian is seeking to kind of bring a little bit of that back. And I find they do a great job of it. And this lesson of making the Mandalorian a little less like Klingons, which I think they could go in that direction, like a warrior kind of race, and a little bit more like samurai, with a kind of ethos and like that kind of like Taoism brought into it. I find really fascinating, and it's kind of my cup of tea. I enjoy it. So I really enjoyed all of that, and I thought that it lended more of a spirituality, but also an emotionality to the Mandalorian, to see that what we've seen this whole season, him kind of, going against this code in a way or being conflicted, but ultimately following what he believed was the right thing to do, because it's like to do no harm to this child and protect it. was in the end what his elder approved of. So that kind of gave me a little chills, and I was like, oh, this was great, you know? I thought that was cool. And throughout the whole season, I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, she kind of echoes Obi-Wan's sentiment in the first Star Wars, where he tells Luke, you must do what you feel is right. Yeah. And that's essentially what she is. She's kind of, I guess, his Obi-Wan in a way. And I just like that she's not by the book. Or maybe he's just too by the book. And she's like, hey, you got to loosen up, man. You know?
Well, right. It's as if he is conflicted, but he still acts in that pure way, you know? So though his thought, you know, like Obi-Wan 2 said, don't let your thoughts betray you.
Right.
And he doesn't let his thoughts betray him. That's why it was when you kind of said like, oh, I was disappointed that there was the saber in it. I actually, coming out of, you know, Rise of the Skywalker 2 today and thinking about this trilogy, I really find more of that Star Wars stuff in The Mandalorian than I did in these 3 films. Except, I mean, I'm a big fan of The Last Jedi. I think that had a good bit of it, and purposefully so. But this in The Mandalorian made me really. That was actually my favorite part of this episode. The action was great fun. Mm-hmm. The beginning was very funny, but the fact that we got to spend time with her and got to kind of see into him too, and we learned more about, you know, we kind of saw the complete flashback of what happened to him, that they invested that time in it, I thought was really cool, because for a show that did meander a lot, they were able to pack a lot into the final episode without it seeming too hokey, and kind of integrate it with the action, though they did kind of hang out in the sewers a while, you know. But that's Star Wars, you know, like, you know, at one point they're like, maybe we should get going. Yeah, I think you should, because you couldn't have walked that much. You know? It's like a lot of people coming after you.
Yeah, but it does give you time to breathe. You know, the action is so front loaded that you need a little time to breathe and relax. And I mean, right after that, we get another action sequence with the armorer and stormtroopers, which it seemed a little shoehorned in, but at the same time, it was so awesome. Just busting up helmets and tossing stormtroopers into the fire. Like, it was a lot of fun, and it's cool because it shows us that we'll probably most likely see her again in season 2.
Yeah, and that stormtrooper goes all the way into the first I thought he was just going to kind of hang on the side, but no, he went all the way in.
Yeah, he burned fast.
Maybe that's some kind of special armor that she'll make from, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I was going to say, what does it look like coming out the other side?
Yeah.
Not pretty. Cool. Man, I don't know if I have any more thoughts on this episode. I'm looking forward to season 2. Do you have any more thoughts on this episode or what's coming up for next season?
I thought, I mean, I have to mention Grief. I think that when he's like, tell him to do the hand thing.
Right.
Carl Weathers was such a joy, and the way he read these lines and the very formal way that Grief speaks, I really liked that a lot. I thought that was a good choice. I don't know if that was his choice or the producers or directors, that this was kind of how this character was. Yeah. But I enjoyed him throughout. I thought that the end was really cool to say, you know, go and reunite him, and that they stay behind, that Grief and Kara decide to stay behind.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether they were going to go with him, but then I kind of wanted them to, but then ultimately when they didn't, I thought, okay, that's cool, because we'll see them again.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of true to that. What we've learned about them so far is they are going to stay behind, and he's going to go kind of complete this mission on his own. And I think we still don't know who it was that walked up to, what was her name? I had it.
Don't
I had it.
remember. Ming-Na Wen's
Let's,
character?
yes, we still don't know who walked up at the end there, or should we just assume that it was Moff Gideon? I don't know. It didn't look like him.
The thing I keep hearing is that we hear spurs jingling.
That's what I hear too, yeah.
And that's also something you hear from Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a sound effect that's used in Boba Fett when Boba Fett's in the original trilogy. I need to find out more about this, but I'm fine if Boba Fett shows up. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, they could. Where did we last see, in the Star Wars timeline? Where did we last see Boba Fett?
He was falling into a Sarlacc pit.
But we know that he's alive somehow, right? How do we know this? I can't remember.
Books, expanded universe.
Books. Okay, yeah. Which are now legends, right?
I believe in one of the new Disney canon books, there's a mention of his armor being sold on Tatooine or something.
Okay.
So he could be alive without his armor, or he could be dead without his armor.
Or he could have had a clone son like his dad, you know?
Right.
A clone of a clone of a clone.
Right.
The clone thing really opened. So now that we're at the end here, do you think that Baby Yoda is a clone, or do you believe, like what Quill said, that it seems to have evolved, as he says, and that this is something different?
I have a feeling what I want to believe is that it's a clone. It has been incubating for 50 years. But it's still a baby. It hasn't been like kind of alive and conscious for 50 years. I also thought if it's a clone and they're using the accelerated growth process like they did with the Republic clones, that the line from Nick Nolte where he says he hasn't aged at all would throw that out of the window. So I don't think it's accelerated growth. So I don't know if he is a clone, if he's been alive since earlier than the Clone Wars, because that would set us back before the Clone Wars. I don't know if they're just trying to get his data sequencing.
Yeah, his midichlorians
to create more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right, that's the ultimate question. Like, is he a clone, or are they trying to clone him?
Yeah, we know that Dr. Pershing is involved. He's got a patch that's similar to the clones on Kamino. So we know that. And we've seen him with the baby on an operating table, which means he was trying to extract something from him. Because he had that kind of torture droid with the needle on it, the hypodermic needle. So I'm assuming he's not a clone, and they're trying to extract his DNA. Otherwise, why would Pershing keep him there to do the experiments? So
that's kind of where I'm coming out.
And if they already cloned this one, if this guy is a clone, well, why would they need this one? Why would they not have the ability to make more? So I feel like this is a natural born Yoda creature, and they're trying to get its hands on it to extract and clone more of them. So I don't believe this baby is a clone.
Okay, cool.
So that's my thoughts. Yeah, I hope season 2, I'd like to see more of. I like that there's Moff Gideon. This season didn't really have a main central villain. And then I like the fact that we have him either taking the baby to either some sort of Jedi temple to be taken care of by Jedis, or to a planet where Yoda species live, so that he could be raised by his own. So it'll be interesting on how they do it. Um, I don't know why I picture Yoda creatures living on something similar to like a ET planet. Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like it would be like that. You know, like when you see the inside of ET spaceship. I
Yeah.
feel like it's exactly the same, but with Yodas. But I don't want there to be a lot of Yodas.
They're going to have to be careful about that, right? Because
Right.
it's just as we've been talking about, too many answers.
The I
You don't want them to like kind of land during like the Yoda carnival or something. Like, it's
right.
like
I feel like
it kind of takes the mystery away.
if he finds a mysterious planet, something that's kind of the opposite of Exegol in the Rise of Skywalker, something that's like really a Jedi planet, and maybe it's hidden. And I feel like if anything, I would be okay with is if he gives the baby to Yaddle, because we haven't seen Yaddle since episode 1, and I feel like that's an established character. She can take the baby and raise the baby. I think I would
That
be
would be
okay with
cool.
that, but I don't know if I want to see a whole. I don't know if I could deal with another Yoda species character. Like I'm fine with Yoda, obviously. Everyone loves Baby Yoda, and then I'm okay with Yaddle, even though she was kind of dumb at the time. But I feel like I can't have more. They're pushing it. They're pushing
It
it.
does. I think that maybe a situation where for some reason he can't go there, like you're saying, there's an intermediary that takes the baby. But then again, if that's something next, it's like how many is this what this show is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the Mandalorian going to be the story until this journey with Baby Yoda is over and then the Mandalorian's over? Or is this like he drops him off somewhere in episode 1 and goes on to a new adventure in like learning about himself or something like that? They add a new mythology to it. But I'm kind of getting the feeling that Baby Yoda, this is what this show is about, their
Right.
connection. But how do you go about finding where the baby is from? That's the thing, right? Like the
Right.
people or creatures that he would have to come in contact with to know where the most powerful force using species is from, it's probably going to have to be
I
other force users, you
I
know?
have an idea. Because the first thing you would have to do is find a Jedi.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, the only Jedi we're aware of is Luke Skywalker. But Ezra Bridger is out there as well.
That would be cool.
I could see them doing a live action Ezra, and he could bring help to maybe look in some sort of Jedi temple or Jedi archives to find the origins of Yoda. Because Ezra's talked to Yoda in Rebels. And so by being able to communicate with Yoda and see Yoda in Force visions, and then being introduced to this character, I feel like that would be interesting. That could help lead him on a track to find the origin of the species and find the home planet. I
I
think
dig it.
I would be much more excited about a live action Ezra than a de-aged 1987 Mark Hamill.
He'll
Because
end up looking like De Niro in The Irishman. He's supposed to be like 28 years old. He looks like he's 60. Did you see The
I
Irishman?
haven't, I haven't.
Oh, okay. There's also this part when like he's supposed to be in like his 30s or 40s, and he beats this guy up, and it looks like it's like an 80-year-old man. Really, it didn't work. It was still a great movie, but yeah, I'm not. I think that would be cool too, or somebody new.
Right.
He comes across, and I whenever someone who is attuned with the Force, because I'm a believer in my Star Wars headcanon that the midichlorians aren't as important. And the Force is around us, it surrounds us, it is a part of us. And everyone can become attuned to the Force, and everyone could become a Force user or a Jedi. And I think that the Mandalorian himself, with his connection to Baby Yoda, maybe he'll develop. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing them develop a little bit of the Force stuff with that, or maybe melding it with the Mandalorian. Because, like I say, I get this kind of cool, a little bit of samurai, a little bit of Zen stuff going on there, and I like that angle. So I like that, like you're saying, that kind of the his new not logo but sigil.
Signet. Yeah.
Signet. Okay, sigil, I guess, is Game of Thrones. And them coming together, representing something too, that sharing who they are with each other on a level that surpasses words, because they don't speak really to each other.
Right. I've also heard the thing that there's different sort of factions of Jedi, and that Qui-Gon Jinn believed in the living Force, and he mentions in the movie a couple times the living Force, sort of a more science way to approach how the Force works. But there's people like Obi-Wan who believe in a more spiritual side of the Force. You know, you have let's say you have someone who's really religious and believe that ghosts are spirits of loved ones. But you can also have people like ghost hunters who are looking into more of the science behind it, as opposed to the spiritual nature. So I feel like the way the midichlorians thing is set up is that it's one way to view the Force, one way to believe in the Force, and that's the way that Qui-Gon believed. He believed that it had a direct correlation with these living creatures that lived with inside people. I could see that being a major plot point. I could see Dr. Pershing trying to maybe embrace the living Force and try to clone cells with a high midichlorian count. And maybe Jon Favreau can say, you know what, you can't do that. It doesn't work. Midichlorians aren't real. That was the wrong way of thinking it, like of how the Force works. So he can totally, if he wanted to, replace what George Lucas set up with midichlorians and dismiss it, and then fans would be excited because, oh, midichlorians were fake. They weren't the correct line of thinking.
And I like what you said, is the way that you put it, which is a personal interpretation,
right,
and what makes one more valid than the other. And the question is, especially with something like the Force, that it's self-manifesting.
Yeah.
So if that's what he believed, that's what he believed.
Right.
Now, my friends on the Double P podcast network had an idea that I thought was kind of cool, that maybe Moff Gideon, since he has that saber, he does not, though, he's not Force sensitive, right?
Right.
And he wants to be. And he is trying to get those midichlorians from Baby Yoda injected into him, like a bone marrow transplant or something,
right,
like a DNA thing.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a cool idea too, because then it takes that idea of the midichlorians and challenges it, and brings it back around to the idea of, like self-determination, insofar as a person's connection with the Force, that it's not based on, you have 20 and I have 24,
right,
so I'm more powerful than you, which I've never really kind of thought in that way when it comes to what I think that Lucas was kind of intending, or that other people, because it is alive in that sense, it's a living, breathing mythology that every new writer and person adds to. But I like your interpretation of it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Man, we've been going for an hour.
Cool.
I think I'm ready to wrap things up. As far as the Mandalorian goes, this is it. Will I return for season 2? I don't know. it's been a hectic 8 weeks. The fact that this landed right in the middle of the holiday season made it a little tough on me, but I don't think I could stop talking about Star Wars, so I might be back for season 2. I feel like why not? We'll see. But
well, I, for one, since I'm live on the podcast, I would like to say do it. I love hearing you talk about it. I love your perspective. I thought you got a great bunch of different guests. So I hope that you do it. It will be in the fall. Maybe it'll be a little earlier. They're saying
Hopefully.
Fall, so a little earlier next time. But I also will have to say that this ain't nothing, man. I did Game of Thrones season 8, and that was hard.
Yeah.
Because people got so angry.
Yeah, I am glad it's on a weekly schedule, though. Like, I'm really glad it's a weekly schedule, and I have Monday nights off, so it's a little bit easier for me to kind of give myself a little buffer in between watching the episode and recording the podcast. Gives me time to think, so that's nice.
And you have some your expectations. You can just kind of what you did this season, then going into next season.
Right.
You kind of go in maybe a little bit more knowing what you might be getting, and it takes a little pressure off. I know as a podcaster that can take a little pressure off you, where you can just kind of go with the flow and have fun with it a little bit more,
Right. And it's tough. It's tough committing to a podcast for a show you haven't seen a single frame of.
Definitely.
It was a little rough, but no, it's a fun show. Trust me. I enjoyed it. There was a couple of hiccups in the middle, but I got over those real quick, especially with these last 2 episodes. And it made me very excited for season 2. Lightsabers and all.
Yeah, man. Hey, I know how it is. You tell Jorge, we actually had an Alcatraz podcast.
Oh, yeah. That show was great.
It didn't last very long.
No,
our
really
podcast, but you don't know what you're going to get. You start off doing a pod, and I think you got to have fun with it and find kind of your joy in it,
Right.
And I think you did a good job of it, man. Even though some of those episodes you weren't too into, you still had some fun talks about Star Wars.
Right. I feel like I never really BS the audience. I think everyone was along. I think everyone was along for my ride, and cool. I think by the end of it, everyone is happy with how the show turned out. Let folks know how to find you and where to go to listen to your shows.
Well, you can just head on over to dvrpodcast.com, and I have a kind of a master feed, daily DVR, where I release pretty much everything. And let's see, we just finished covering The Watchmen. We did Mindhunter Season 1 in the fall, and now we're jumping back into Mindhunter Season 2. I'm also going to be covering The Bachelor with Sarah. I've been watching that show with my wife forever, so I decided why not do a fun. That's like a no expectations podcast, man. That's like the easiest podcast in the world.
Right.
And then we're going to be doing another season of Curb Your Podcast, where we cover Curb Your Enthusiasm, and we just laugh. We'll probably do it'll be a shorter pod this time around. We were kind of going scene by scene on Curb, and that's not really the kind of show you need to do that with.
Yeah.
But we're going to do that, and then we'll be back for Westworld. So whole bunch of stuff, man. I want to have you on the show, and maybe I'm trying to get together some people to talk about Rise of the Skywalker over the next week or so. So if you're up for that, maybe I can gather you. We might get 3 or 4 people on that one.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm in a weird headspace right now when it comes to episode 9. I loved it so much. I loved it even more the second time, and I just don't want to hear anybody's opinion anymore. I am totally happy over here, loving it. My wife loved it. And so we're kind of happy over here, and then if I see something on the internet, I just want to fight somebody, not because they're not because they're wrong. It's just because their opinions are just I don't know. I feel like I have my blast shield down. I'm just ready to just like I don't know. We'll see. Give me a week or so. Give me a week or so.
All right. Hey, man, I always try to keep a kind of a perspective, and I think yours is correct. You got to be honest, and if that's how you're feeling, man, I ain't gonna take you down. I'm not gonna. You stay having fun. Sometimes it does to overanalyze something. You just want to enjoy it, And so much of my enjoyment too, and I have to say, The Mandalorian, I've mentioned, I watch it with my son, and seeing it through his eyes and experiencing it with him, and also seeing Rise of it's like two different things. I can put my analyzer hat on, or I can put my feelings and that is pure love. So it's good to stay in the love space.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. We'll see. Well, there's a lot of stuff I like. I'm sure if it's not Star Wars, it could be something else.
Yeah. Definitely.
I love to Watchmen, but I'm glad no one really asked me to be on their Watchmen podcast, because I feel like I'm not smart enough to talk about it as in depth as what I've heard. I just enjoyed sitting back and listening to those podcasts as opposed to trying to be involved with one. So yeah, this is more my speed as far as podcasting goes. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on, and I'll chat with you soon.
Thank you very much for having me, brother. It was a blast.
Yeah, no problem. McClunky.